In this video, I'll be demonstrating the blocking in stages, which are the first colour layers of this pet portrait. Hi, I'm Marion Dutton. I'm a professional artist, I'm the author of the Healing Art book, and I'm the founder of MazArt Studio. So if you are enjoying these tutorials and you'd like to see some more, please consider subscribing to this channel and giving me those all-important thumbs up. And of course, add your comments below as well if there's something you would like to see me paint just for you. So as promised, I'm going to begin the first colour layers of this Greyhound. As you can see, the underpainting is nice and dry. Now the brushes I'll be using today are the MazArt flat brushes. Also I've got an additional, this is a Daler Rowney graduate brush, and I'm just going to use that to actually apply some oil. It's quite an old brush now, but it's very, very soft. And then the only other brush I've got is the small detailed round brush, and this will be for going into the eyes for smaller details. But the MazArt flats really cover pretty much all your basic needs. The other products we'll be using, as well as the paints, and I'll list all the colours below, but these are the standard 12 colours that I always use. Well, it's 10 colours plus black and white. I'm also going to be using the Zest It Lean Medium, which I've got in this small container here. So I'm going to begin by adding a thin coat of medium over the entire canvas. Now I want to use a nice soft old brush for this, because you need to apply this nice and gently. You don't really want to be scrubbing this on. You want to apply this nice and gently so that you don't actually lift off, because if you really rub, you will lift a little bit of that burnt umber off. Now from there, we do want to take a paper towel and we want to gently remove that excess medium from there. Now, as always, I'm going to begin in the eyes. Now the eyes are brown, but he does have a little bit of an orange glow in there. So I'm going to begin glazing a very thin coat of burnt umber. Again, as I do one eye, I'll do the next. And now I'm avoiding this, the glow in the eyes, the sparkle in the eyes. So very, very lightly. Now you should be able to see that you can still see all of the underpainting underneath. Now before I go any further, I want to preserve this sparkle. Now if you really pay attention and look, you'll usually see some kind of blue or blue-grey in a dog's eye. So I'm going to begin with some ultramarine blue, some titanium white, and I'm going to grey that down with just a little bit of burnt umber, so it's a nice blue-grey colour. We are going to be highlighting this, but to begin with I'm just kind of going to preserve that. I like to save the sparkle right till the end. So I'm just covering, again very thinly, you can still see everything underneath. And as I do one eye, I'll do the other. Now I want to start, before I start detailing the pupil, I want to begin to put some of the glow in the eye. Now I'm looking at this and he's got sort of an orange glow. So I'm going to begin with some cadmium orange straight over that burnt umber, but not looking to cover all of it, just where I can see that reflective light coming through. Now I'm going to drop down to a little bit of yellow ochre and a small amount of white. Now I'm going to add even more of a reflective light. This is the light passing through the eye underneath the pupil. A little bit more, but slightly smaller than what I've done with the orange. Very lightly glazing this on, and because we have that medium in there, I'm not having to worry, I can just glaze that on. Now I'm going to take the Dome blender and lightly tap and soften. I really like a polished look to my portraits. I'm going to add a final highlight, a final reflective light. Slightly, this is just white, but again, even smaller than before, just to have that little extra sparkle kind of really coming through. So as the highlight gets brighter, the area that you cover is just that little bit smaller. And again, back to that Dome blender, and let's tap and soften. Now again, this is just the first colour layers, so for now that's more than enough. I'm going to add a little bit of this grey blue for the whites of the eye. White is never white, so I'll pop that in there. And then we can start going a little darker. We can use burnt umber just to neaten the outside edges of the eye. And this allows you to tidy everything up. And again, what you do on one eye, you do on the other. Into black, this is ivory black, and I'll really detail the pupil. Again, I'm really paying attention to this reference. And I can see a kind of a purplish black around the edge of the eye. Now we're ready to start adding a few highlights. So I'm going into titanium white. First of all, I'm going to highlight the white of this eye, and I'm going to leave most of that grey showing and just pop on a little highlight. And the same in here as well. And then onto this sparkle. Now I always put a little dot where I think the brightest part is going to be. Give the brush a wipe and then gently kind of drag this over, following the contour. I'll do the same on the other side. So you're picking up that grey blue from earlier. And then finally I use quite a thickish white to kind of reinforce the brightest area. Now remember, this is just the first colour layers. So now I want to mix the colour for the hair. Now when I run a class, I use these colour charts which I hand out to students. These are all hand painted. I only have a few of these. However, these colour charts are actually available in the Pet Portrait and Portrait booklets. And they're a very, very good match. The exact colour charts that I use for all the teaching is in these booklets, which is the skin recipes and all the colour charts for all the different hair. These are a brilliant base tone for starting any kind of hair, dog portrait or even people portrait. I use these for hair as well. So again, this booklet, it is only a small little booklet, but it's all compact with everything that I'm doing in the video. I find that what I wanted to do with these booklets is just really just get down to the nitty-gritty and just give you the step-by-step. They come as a set, so the actual painting one as well, and this has also got all the different recipes in, including lots of ingredients and recipes for doing the variety of different eye colours. These are available on my website, and again, if you check out the details below, all the links and everything will be in the notes below. So I'm going to use my swatch and I'm going to take a look. Again, this is just a great starting point. Taking a look at the dog. She's kind of a purpley brown colour, purpley black if you like. So I'm going to go with a purple black formula, but I am going to change it up a little bit. So initially I'm going to do the base colour, and again using this recipe, the base is 1 part burnt umber, 1 part of the purple or the violet. So this is going to be a base colour, kind of a mid-tone if you like. Now to that I'm going to add just the least amount of white. Again, I'll just keep checking the colours. I am seeing just a hint of pink, so I'm going to add a little alizarin crimson in that. And again, think of these as a base point. So as a good mid-tone, that's great. Now I'm going to use a shadow, and for the shadow, it's 1 black, a darker tone, 1 black, and 1 of the purple. So we've got a nice dark tone, we've got a mid-tone, and I'm also going to now do a highlight, and for the highlight I'm going to take some of this mid-tone and just add even more of the white. Again, I always start with the 3 basic tones for the underpainting, or for the first colour layers. Now I'm going to take my knife and hold this right against, and you can see we've got quite a good mixture there. If you squint, it's quite a good mixture. So again, remember these swatches are just a starting point. You've still really got to observe your pet and really pay attention to the colours that you can see. So now I'm going to begin blocking in. Again, I always start on the eyes. I'm using the lighter tone and using the underpainting as a map. So where I see light, I'm going to pop in the light. Remember, you're putting this on thin enough that you do not lose the underpainting. Now next to that I can see a dark, so I'm going to go into the dark mixture. It's somewhere in the middle, so again, using these 2 colours I may get something a little bit in the middle. Remember, this is blocking in, and this is where students can sometimes get a little bit lost. I'm going to focus just around this eye area so you can see how blocky you can see how I'm using that underpainting as my map. Where I think it's a highlight, where I think it's a mid-tone. Again, I'm seeing something in the middle, so feel free to kind of mix the colours. Very blocky. And again, the colour may not be absolutely perfect, but it's very, very close, and it's certainly the undercolour that I can see. So as for this, certainly for this first layer, as a basic, most of my pet portraits are 3 tones, 3 layers. So now I've got this blocked in, and what I'm going to do now is this back and forth stroke, following the contour and the direction that the hair is growing. And it is important, I'm not actually lifting the brush on and off, I am staying on and back and forth, so I'm taking one colour into the next. Usually at the join, so it's where the 2 colours join, I'm going to go into one and back and forth. And what happens is it looks as though you've painted hundreds of little hairs. Remember, this is the blocking in, it is not a detail stage. Back and forth. Changing the direction of the stroke. And I'm always wiping in between. Then I'll use a mop. And again, I like this nice polished look to my portraits. And I'll just mop that through. Again, if you really look, you can actually see I'm not covering all of that umber. I'm quite happy for that to actually peek through. So I'm just going to continue now blocking in the dog in exactly the same way. So you can see I'm just jumping between the light tone, the medium tone and the dark tone, and then just using this back and forth stroke, following the direction that the hair is growing, and then of course just following with that mop to give it that final polished look. So now we're on the nose, and again you can see the colours are very, very similar to the base tone that I've mixed, and I'm just paying attention to those lights and darks. The muzzle is grey. Whenever you paint white, you always sort of use a grey tone rather than white, so that I'm able to highlight later on in the third and final stages. Here I'm beginning to add some extra white around the nose where I can see that little bit of extra shine. And again, remember, this is not the final stages, but it is a little bit brighter on that nose. Now this time I'm using the dome blender to tap, and that adds that little bit of extra texture for the nose. And as always, I finish with that mop to give it a really nice polished feel. Working on the chest area now, again I'm just focusing on lights, medium and dark colours, and then using that dome blender for that lovely back and forth stroke. You can see here how blocky it is to begin with until you've done that blending. It really does simplify the pet portrait process if you can work in these simple stages. The blending here makes all the difference and turns it from very blocky into the illusion that you've painted thousands of hairs. This is the beauty of oil painting. Here you can see me adding a grey area. This is for the white fur that I can see on the chest. And again, like I said before, we never use pure white. We always want to sort of paint the undertones that we can see first, so that we're able to highlight in the third and final stages. Again, that back and forth stroke really makes this look like hair. I'm working on the back of the dog now in exactly the same way, really paying attention to that reference photo and switching the colours between the light and the dark and the mid-tones that I can see. Keeping everything very, very soft. In the final painting, I will keep the background of the dog and the back of the dog very, very soft and make the focus on the face. Working on the collar now. I'm using cadmium red for the highlights on the collar, and then darkening with alizarin crimson with a small touch of violet for the shadows that I can see. The metalwork on the collars is made exactly the same as white fur. I apply a grey tone to begin with.
and then highlight that with white. Those chisel edge brushes are great for getting really fine details and really sharp lines. And again, finishing with that mop. I'm really going over the whole portrait now to make sure everything is soft.
Now for the background, I want to mix a greenish blue grey. So I'm going to start with some grey. There's some grey I made earlier. Mix a nice grey colour. And at the side of that I'm going to add some green, sap green. And a little bit of the ultramarine blue as well, so I can kind of dip between them all, maybe even a little bit of yellow. A nice big brush.
Again, my apologies, some of the palette shots are not perfect, but basically I'm working with a large puddle of grey, and at the side of each I've put some ultramarine blue, sap green and some cadmium yellow, and I'm going to randomly dip into the grey and then pick up maybe a bit of yellow, maybe a bit of green. And here you can see how mottled this background's going to look. I'm using a back and forth stroke, a flip-flop stroke, to really push that paint into the weave of the canvas. I'm also using the largest flat brush in the MazArt set. We will be softening this with a mop, but at this point I'm only interested in just getting the colour on there and keeping it nice and random. We're really looking for that lovely mottled background effect. And typically I will darken the corners. So slightly more of the blue, slightly more of that green to give a really mottled effect, but a little bit darker at the bottom. And again, keeping that grey in there keeps everything nice and muted. The focus is on the dog, so we really don't want the background screaming. Now you can see I'm just dipping into the different colours and just dancing that into some of the greys that I can see there. A little bit of blue. Very, very random. This is the time to have a little bit of fun with your backgrounds. I always do the background at the same time as the first colour layers, because in a little while you'll see I'm using the mop and I really want to soften the edge of the background right into the dog. Use that mop very, very lightly. And keep wiping in between. You can really see that I'm pushing that paint right in, so I'm blending the background and the edge of the dog at the same time. If you do find that the brush molts a little bit, which a lot of these mops do, just turn the brush over on its side and kind of pick them off. Again, you'll see now I'm just finishing this whole portrait off, making sure the edges are soft. And then I'm popping on those final details with a flat brush and just getting those final bits of hair so that they melt and stay soft into the background. So this is the end of part 2 of this Greyhound demonstration. Don't forget to check back for part 3 next week when we'll finish this portrait off. And again, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Thanks for watching.